This is the Job Stories Podcast, how people find work that matters. All right, Brian, so we'll go ahead and get started if that's all right. I truly appreciate you coming on the Job Stories Podcast. The way we like to get started, if you don't mind, just kind of introducing yourself. So if you don't mind to just kind of give a quick intro, what's your name and what's the current job that you have now?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on the call. Really excited to really enjoy your podcast. My name is Brian Williams, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of AneScan, which is an electronic medical record company based here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool. So COO, I love getting to talk to folks kind of at your position in your career to kind of maybe reverse engineer how you got there. So because we kind of like to shed light on, I think when I was 20 and I would talk to a COO, I'd be like, well, that's cool for this guy or girl, but I don't know that I could ever get there. But you have a story, and I'd like to kind of break that down a little bit if that's okay. So how did it get started for you? Where did it all start?
Yeah, interesting story. And I really have always been interested in healthcare. I kind of pretty much from an early age knew that I wanted to be in healthcare somewhere. I didn't know how to, go about doing that. For a while, I thought that maybe I wanted to be a physician, but I always knew that I wanted to be in healthcare. And, in college, I had a friend of mine that pursued a Master in Health Administration degree, which is a master's degree. And essentially that is a degree where, a hospital CEO or healthcare administrators would get their training. And I thought, that sounds like a great idea. So I went from Texas to Tulane and got my master's in healthcare administration degree. And then while I was there, it was really great because they had a residency, administrative residency, and I worked for a company called MaxCare Louisiana, which was a very small health plan. And so it was kind of really at the advent of managed care and PPOs and all that kind of stuff. Got a great exposure to the healthcare side of managed care. And then from there, I decided that, I didn't really want to go into the traditional hospital route in terms of hospital administration, that I was going to be more focused, and I thought that I could get more exposure and learn more if I went into consulting. So I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers in Dallas, which was great. Started out there in revenue cycles, so did a number of different engagements, and did then I kind of felt like I had a little bit of a weakness in finance, and so I joined the M&A team with PricewaterhouseCoopers. So we did a lot of M&A deals and all that kind of stuff. And, I'm constantly learning. And so, my desire to go to the finance team to really kind of put some more skills in my bag, so to speak, was important for me. And it has been throughout my career. And then when I proceeded through PwC and then as a manager, I joined the project management team. So we were leading large scale project redesigns and workforce improvement, really focusing upon workflow. And it was a lot of different aspects, from revenue cycle to supply chain to medical records and those types of improvements, and large engagements. So we're talking, 100 clients or 100, consultants that I was overseeing and having direct contact with boards and C-suite and all that kind of stuff. So from a PwC perspective, really great experience. And then I kind of got the itch to go to Wall Street. And so I was always interested in stocks. And, in fact, when I was in graduate school, it was like the advent of the internet. But so, we didn't have phones in order to check stock prices. So I'd go, it was a small program. So I'd go next door and I'd check a stock price in the middle of class and then come back and get back into class. But I've always been interested in the market. And so I joined first UBS and as a sell side equity research analyst. And then our team was recruited by Credit Suisse, and then we went over there covering mainly hospitals in the post-acute space as well as psych. And then from there, I got an opportunity to go down to Nashville, and that's how I got to Nashville. And worked for a group called Avondale Partners,
Mm-hmm.
and worked as a sell side equity analyst from there. And then while I was at Avondale, I got an opportunity through one of my hedge fund clients who was thinking about an investment in my current company, AneScan. And so he wanted me to go to meet the CEO and see what I thought about it. And, we kind of hit it off. And I've been here at AneScan for about 10 years and really have led the company from startup stage to really a mature, growth focused, client focused, company that has done really well and is really loved by our clients. I mean, we get really, really great reviews.
Oh, what a great feeling too. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about your story that I've got a few questions I'm thinking of. The first one is kind of as you were moving throughout your career, you talked about continual learning. That's something I'm really interested to hear more about in terms of, is that something that y'all have looked at or maybe even taught a little bit at AneScan in the 10 years that you've been there? I mean, are you looking for folks at AneScan that are curious about learning as you are throughout your career and support that, if that makes sense? I'm kind of curious how you've continued to apply that even with the job you have as COO now, that whole continual learning concept.
Yeah. So, I think that from my perspective, it's been very important for my career to continuously learn. And as I talked about, and I kind of introduced this earlier, I kind of felt like I had a weakness in finance. And so it's ironic that I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, joined their M&A team, and then parlayed that later into a Wall Street career in New York City. And so, it's been great for me to do that and to really focus upon continuous learning. And we really focus upon that at AneScan too. We hire A-plus talent that have curiosity and they want to understand, greater macro forces in economics. And it's, from the benefit to AneScan that gives really is extremely important because, if you have people who are intellectually curious, and they're focused upon really your client needs, but they also understand other aspects of the business, such as, where could we create a product that is ancillary to our core product that we could build up and we could utilize to grow the company. And so I can't do that on my own. Our executive team can't do that on our own. And so we need people who are on the ground, who are seeing things in the market, to where they identify opportunities for growth. And that's obviously beneficial for the company. But I think that, especially for your young listeners, I think it's really important to always be learning, always have curiosity, and it's going to really do you well in your career.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you for that. That's really, really great. I'm curious too, now, this kind of idea of continual learning. Now, have you had a mentor in your career? Because throughout the changes that you've made, I was curious, have you had some mentorship or career coaching or anything like that? Or have you kind of found that's just maybe something you've been interested in as far as like continual learning, kind of just personally? I was curious about mentorship for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that mentorship has been proven, either if you're a mentor or a mentee, to be very important for anybody's career. A lot of times, if you're a mentor, it's more beneficial for the mentor than the actual mentee. And so I've done that throughout my life. And I've been with, and it really is in all areas of your life. It doesn't have to just be with business, early on in my career, I was a swimmer, and I swam for the University of Texas. And Eddie Reese, who is the finest coach to ever grace this earth, was my coach, and I am just honored to have swum for him. He was so great. But what made him so great was that he inspired you to be your best self. And he really loved you, and he really, wanted you to do well. And it was really his lead in terms of making you want to excel that really drove his swimmers. And that's the reason why he's got 15 national championships under his belt. But as I went from my athletic career into business, one of the first things that I did when I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers was to become involved with Trinity University in San Antonio's Master in Health Administration program as the lead administrator for their administrative residency program. So I would coordinate going down there and interviewing residents. Now, they had a 1-year residency where they could come to work in PricewaterhouseCoopers, get great exposure. And so they were with us for a year. And many of those folks that I mentored and coached have gone on to be hospital CEOs and partners and consulting firms and had very great careers. So from my perspective, it has been just absolutely awesome when I reconnect with them after, 10 or 15 years and look back on their career and say, wow, I had a piece of that. It's really satisfying for me to see that, really gave them an opportunity and they've done really well. And, in our current firm, AneScan, we do a lot of that. It's extremely important for us in order to establish a culture to where there is growth opportunities for people, from a human resource perspective. But also, I think that it's also important for me to have a personal relationship with folks. And we've kind of created almost a family environment here to where we really care about people. And if you do that, you're ultimately going to be more successful.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm so thrilled you touched on sports too and swimming. There's another healthcare executive in town named Kyle Duke, who's been on the podcast, and we talked about this at coffee one day. But I'm a big believer in the things that you can learn in sports at an early age that impacts, kind of who you can be in your career too. And the thing that I think I learned the most in sports was maybe even failure, which is a little scary to talk about, but like this idea of being able to handle failure well, because we are going to fail sometimes. And I attribute that, I think, to sports. Do you relate to that a little bit as well, just through your sports background?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways I can go with this, but I'm going to start by saying, as an athlete, I didn't want to win. I hated to fail. And so getting beat was worse than winning. And so, from my perspective, it was is important to fail, and that comes in a lot of different areas. Whether you're in a race or you're in a situation to where you are not having a good day, and persevering and moving forward. I think that's great lessons. I think sports has, for me and other people who I see that have an athletic background, I know that they're resilient and they've got grit and they can work hard. And so those are all things from a sports perspective, that I parlayed into my career. But really, if you look at organizations and failure, most organizations will say, listen, you have to have a nimble team that is, or a portion of your company that is nimble enough to try out new things and fail fast and fail forward. And by failing forward, I mean to learn from those mistakes. And so you're not going to nail everything right away. You're going to have some projects, or you're going to have some opportunities that perhaps don't go well. And so it's important to try new things. And that's where a lot of companies in the United States and in the world have maybe thought, hey, this is going to be a great idea for a company from a macro perspective. And they go for it. And, the company that they start is not necessarily the company that it ends up being. And so there's some failures, but they get it right by going through the process.
I'm honestly having heard this firsthand, and I'm thankful for that, because that's a good reminder. Because I think even for us, we do have a bit of an entrepreneur audience for this podcast. And I think even for me personally, I needed to hear that today, because we've done a lot of that. We've done a lot of, let's try it. Let's do it this way, or let's do it that way. And some have not gone well, but at least we tried. And I do like to think back to, like, almost, you said it, but in kind of grown up playing sports, like, there's some days you don't feel like getting up and going to practice, but it's almost like those are the days where you got better, you know? And so learning that grit, and I love to hear that y'all are championing that at your business too.
Well, yeah, Mason, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but, being an entrepreneur and being an athlete is very similar. There are some days when it's hard, and I know this from my experience with AneScan. There were many times in which, we were at a point to where, we had to cut back on executive salaries in order to make payroll for the rest of the team, and so it's like, you need to find ways, especially when you're in a startup, and for, your viewers out there that are struggling or even wondering if they should start a company. I would always say, yeah, go for it. Go out there, do the due diligence, get the data in terms of what you're looking to do, and then go for it, because there is no greater way to wealth creation in this country than